Changing fashions. Clothes can change a lot during a century. Here you can see some of the many. 1900. Big hat with feathers. Soft leather gloves. A parasol. Men always wore hats out of doors. Top hats, straw hats, and caps were popular. Young girls wore their long hair loose. Buttoned boots. Women wore a new kind of corset which gave them an S figure shape. Their long skirts flared out at the bottom. Car clothes. Early cars did not have a roof. People wore gloves, dust coats, or raincoats, hats with veils, or caps and goggles. These helped to protect them from rain, cold, dirt, and dust. 1910. Women began wearing skirts that were so narrow at the bottom that they could only take a few tiny steps. These were called hobble skirts. Hobble skirt. Clothes were often decorated with buttons. She has a parasol, long gloves, and a very large hat. 1914 to 1918. Uniforms. At the start of World War I, many men wanted to become soldiers. People liked their smart uniforms. As the war went on, many men were killed or injured, and uniforms were no longer so much admired. Here is an American soldier in 1918. 1920s. Women's clothes changed completely in the 1920s. The new short skirts and the hairstyles were thought to be very daring. This is a hat called a cloche, and you can see that her hair is very short. She's wearing a straight dress with a very low waist. 1930s. Going to the movies was popular. Some people tried to copy the styles film stars wore. Most people could not afford these styles. He has black and white shoes, a striped suit, a trilby hat. Beach clothes. In the 1930s, sunbathing first became fashionable. Before that time, beach clothes had covered up a lot of the body. So these are the beach clothes that you would wear in 1905. And this is in 1931, 1954, and then this is in 1970. Jeans. The first jeans were made in America in 1874. They were strong trousers for working men. American students first wore them in 1940s. Jeans are still very popular. 1939 to 1945. War clothes. This is a wartime suit in 1942. This is a soldier's uniform. Here's working clothes. In Europe during World War II, material was hard to buy. Clothes were made which did not use much material. In America, it was easier to buy the latest fashions and nylon stockings, a new invention. In the 1950s, women enjoyed wearing full skirts again. These were held out by petticoats. They used a lot of material. This is a dress with a tight top and a narrow waist and a full skirt held out by a petticoat. Teenage clothes. Before the 1950s, teenagers wore similar clothes to adults. In the 1950s, they began to dress in their own way. They copied some from the styles of rock and roll singers. 1960s. In the 1960s, new materials such as plastic, metal, and even paper were used for clothes. Mini skirts were first worn in the 1965. Women first wore tights in 1960s. More changes. There have been many more styles since the 1960s. These are two of them. This is the 1960s and 70s hippie clothes. Many styles, such as punk, have come from pop music. Punk started in 1976. The end.